and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki. On this week's show, we have bingo cheaters, we have parking lot meat, and tortoises to the moon. That's right, we're going to send some tortoises to the moon. All that and more on this episode of Other Items of Interest. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Other Items of Interest. I'm your host, Jack Zablocki, and I am completely unprepared for any sort of monologue. I don't have anything prepared for the introduction of the show. I don't want to ramble on. That can be tedious. So whatever comes to mind is what I'll talk about, which I guess is rambling. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm just a big fat liar. Last week we did a story on so-called zombie Angelina Jolie. If you happen to see any pictures of her, there was some confusion as to what was going on. So the woman did get plastic surgery to look like Angelina Jolie. The zombie part, that's a little different. That's makeup and Photoshop to get the really weird angular face and strange hands and whatever else. So I just wanted to put that out there. There was confusion, I noticed, among some people viewing the pictures out on Twitter and Instagram. By the way, you can visit us on Instagram and Twitter. We're on Instagram at Other Items Pod and on Twitter at Other Items. And while I'm here doing this, there's www.otheritemsofinterest.com. Or you can email us at otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. And those are the ways you can get in touch with us or check out what has been on the show. So got all that out of the way. Now I'm completely lost for something to talk about. I got the stupid plugs out of the way, so that's gone. Today's show is a pretty good one, I think. Got some Extinction Rebellion going on, trying to save the Earth. It's our first story up. I think my favorite story of the day is. I don't want to give it away right at the beginning. You should have to wait for it, right? It's so good. I have to share it though. But I can't, because then it ruins the surprise, the excitement. Got quite a few interesting stories. There's one on a Jesus shoe. I can say at least it has holy water in the soles. I'm giving away too much there. A story about dog poop. This is actually the second story we've done on dog poop. First one was about a guy in Phoenix who didn't like all the dog poop in his neighborhood, so he would take chalk and draw circles around the poop and leave messages in chalk on the sidewalk. Is this your poop? Clean up your poop, stuff like that. This one is very similar, but it's more professional, as the city got involved, shaming people for leaving dog poop around. Yeah, so we got a bunch of different stories on today's show. I think with that, we're going to cut it short. I've rambled long enough, which is what I didn't want to do. So let's get on with the show, shall we? Yes, we shall. We're We're going to start off with a long one today. From news.com.au, Paralympian glues himself to the top of British Airways jet as Extinction Rebellion invades London City Airport. An Extinction Rebellion protester glued himself to the top of a British Airways plane at London City Airport today. The man, identified by Extinction Rebellion as former Paralympic cyclist James Brown, would have been funny if it was Godfather of Soul James Brown, but he's dead, was seen clinging to the aircraft in a video streamed online by the protest group. Mr. Brown, who is visually impaired, was arrested at Heathrow last month after a protest which saw some Extinction Rebellion activists try to fly a drone near the airport. The 54-year-old, who won a bronze medal at London 2012, glued himself to the top of a British Airways Embraer 190 jet. Here I am on top of a fucking aeroplane at City Airport. I hate heights. I'm shitting myself. I managed to get on the roof. I'm so shaky, he said in a Facebook video. And there are a lot of photos on this article if you wanted to check out the show notes at www. Let's see if I can get this right. Check out the show notes at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. And you can check out all the pictures of the man glued to the top of an airplane. Let's get back to the article. This is all about the climate and ecological crisis. We're protesting against government inaction on climate and ecological breakdown. They declare a climate emergency and then do nothing about it. In fact, they go the opposite direction. They sanction the expansion of airports, Heathrow, Bristol, and others. We can't let this go on. We can't have our cake and eat it. He later noticed security were approaching and said, "Oh good, security are coming. I hope they don't take too long because this is fucking scary." He was eventually removed. A spokesperson. I wonder when they're going to get it right. Some articles, they use spokesperson, and others use spokesman or spokeswoman. And I thought we lived in a PC world now. Do we or do we not? Because it's getting confusing. Anyway, a spokesperson for British Airways said, "We are investigating what happened as a matter of urgency." Meanwhile, another protester managed to ground a flight from London City Airport to Dublin today, to the fury of the passengers on board. The Aer Lingus flight this morning was on the runway and about to take off when a smartly dressed man stood up and gave a lecture on climate change. Filming himself on his phone, the man said, "I don't wish to travel with you, but I don't wish to get off. I'm extremely sorry for the inconvenience." Furious passengers responded saying, "You're not sorry at all." As their flight was held up, travelers pleaded with the crew to remove the bespectacled man from the plane. Continuing to address those on board, the man said, "We have 2 generations of human civilization left if we carry on doing what we're doing." Another passenger then asked him, "Why are you filming yourself?" To which we don't have an answer. The man was later seen being led away from the aircraft by police officers. The flight, scheduled to depart at 9:40 a.m., was delayed by 10 minutes. Not quite the effect you wanted, probably. Passenger Warren Swalby tweeted, "Just about to take off from London City Airport. Our flight was infiltrated by a climate change protester." Nicholas Watt, the political editor of BBC Newsnight, wrote, "My flight from London City Airport to Dublin has just been grounded by a climate change protester. On runway and about to take off when smartly dressed man in late middle age stood up with iPhone to deliver a lecture on climate change up and down aisle. Cabin crew calmly and very politely asked protester to resume his seat. Politely but persistently he declined and proceeded to deliver his lecture on climate change in aisle. Plane was at end of runway, so the pilot taxied back to the gate where plane was met by a throng of police. They came on board and escorted the protester off the plane. The final irony of the climate protest on our flight: we cannot take off until we have taken on extra fuel. To replace the fuel used during the protest, our pilot notes with humor. Aer Lingus said the passenger was removed due to disruptive behavior on board, and a full security check of the aircraft was completed before the plane departed. The Climate Change Group started their 3-day Hong Kong-style shutdown of London City Airport this morning, gluing themselves to the terminal building and dancing on a roof, but ultimately failing to cancel flights. The latest protest is against the climate impact of flying and the government's ongoing support of airport expansion. Hundreds of environmentalists attempted to block the entrance to the airport from the DLR by sitting together on the ground and singing "Fly Today, Gone Tomorrow." Activist Phil Kingston, 83, was among those arrested, the third time he has been arrested as part of Extinction Rebellion protests in the past week. Protesters were seen being dragged out of the airport by officers after failing to break through security into the terminal. One was heard saying, "Please stop, you're hurting me." One activist climbed onto part of the roof of the terminal building where he was cheered by fellow protesters. Standing on the roof, he bellowed down, "Shut the airport down, rebellion." He then danced on the roof as a live band played clarinet music below. Clarinet music? Those arriving for flights were redirected to a second terminal entrance by security workers and were not allowed to enter the building without showing their boarding cards first. Taxi driver Jason Lampier said that the protests had disrupted his work in around the city. "It's disturbing everyone's everyday life, working, travel in and travel out of the airport. Yeah, have a voice, but not disrupt people's lives like this," he said. Well, that's a protest. It's a disruption. Get your point across. Excuse me. Just editorializing. Today's protest at City Airport is the fourth day of demonstrations by the Climate Change Group. Protesters have been camped on roads around Parliament Square and Whitehall since Monday, calling for urgent action on climate change and wildlife. The Metropolitan Police said 800 people have been arrested since the start of the Extinction Rebellion protests on Monday, including 91-year-old John Lyons yesterday. They have confiscated 8 10-ton lorries worth of kit, including generators, power sources, toilets, tents, and sleeping equipment. A total of 500 cops from other forces from England and Wales have been brought in to help cope with the protests. Disruption continued in the capital yesterday with stunts that included a mass breastfeeding near Parliament Square to plead for the lives of their children and a group yoga session outside Downing Street. That's got to be the most meek protest I've ever heard of, a yoga session. But whatever works. Police were also seen marching a giant octopus back to Trafalgar Square. On Wednesday night, activists continued their protest in Trafalgar Square. They were joined by Benedict Cumberbatch and Simon Amstel, while electronic music duo Disclosure and Orbital played a set. I'd like to know more about the police seen marching a giant octopus back to the square. What was that about? It's one line and they just leave it at that. Well, let's move on. In the wake of Prime Minister Boris Johnson calling the protesters uncooperative crusties, his father Stanley Johnson said the comments were made in humor and he would consider it a compliment to be called a crusty by his son. I seriously doubt that. Defending the protest group's tactics today, Mr. Johnson Sr. said, "I don't think many of them are breaking the law. I believe that they are wedded to nonviolence, to peaceful protest." A London City Airport spokesperson, Jesus fucking Christ, said, "We can confirm that a number of protesters have arrived at London City Airport. We continue to work closely with the Metropolitan Police to ensure the safe operation of the airport, which remains fully open and operational." As of 9:15 a.m., there have been over 60 flights which have either arrived or departed. If you are flying from London City today, please check the status of your flight with your airline before traveling to the airport. The airport is the capital's fifth biggest, popular with business travelers, bankers, and politicians for short-haul and regional routes. So there you go. Started the show with a long one, but important one at that. I kind of wonder if you go to hell for something like this. New Jersey women charged after church bingo cheating allegation. From NBCNewYork.com. Police in New Jersey say a church bingo night went awry after an allegation that two players had taped a called number onto their card to claim a bingo win. So it sounds like what they did, they had their bingo card. They needed one more number. They must have cut it out from another card and then taped it where they needed it to get bingo. I don't know why or how they figured nobody would notice, but let's continue with the story. Investigators say 71-year-old Teresa Davis and 38-year-old Keisha Brockington said they had the winning card carrying a prize of nearly $200 Thursday at St. Maria Goretti Church Hall, but a church volunteer noticed that one of the winning numbers had been taped over the number on the card. The Camden residents were charged with improper behavior under a borough ordinance. A parish official says it's the first issue in 20-plus years of bingo games at the church. It wasn't clear whether they had attorneys. Messages left for Davis wasn't immediately returned, and a working number for Brockington couldn't be found. I don't think I had to read that, but I did anyway. I got tricked into doing it. I was just going with the flow. Nobody cares if they have attorneys or not. Right? Right. Anyway, that's the end of the article. People cheating in bingo. What is this world coming to? It's a madhouse. It's an absolute madhouse out there. Well, you could file this one under disturbing. Disturbing behavior. Man allegedly threatened farmers who denied him livestock love. From Canoe.com. A New Jersey man, another New Jersey story. Is New Jersey the new Florida? A New Jersey man with a hankering for furry creatures is behind bars after he was accused of threatening farmers who denied him from making the moves. That's MOOVES. Because, livestock, cows. Anyway, farmers who denied him from making the moves on their barnyard animals. According to the New Jersey Herald, 31-year-old Richard Dick Decker, allegedly sent messages to farms and horse stables in Sussex County, New Jersey, in August 2018, inquiring if he could have sexual relationships with their barn animals, specifically cows and or horses. He's got a specific taste, I guess. After being denied some animal loving, Decker reportedly began harassing the farmers, sending them threatening messages and leaving homemade metal spikes in their driveways to deflate the tires on their vehicles. In one instance, Decker allegedly threatened to beat a farmer's wife with a wooden stick. I think this man may have some problems. An arrest report noted several farm owners had their vehicles' tires damaged by the metal spikes. Decker was arrested on October 3rd when they searched the man's home, cops found a homemade .22 caliber firearm, arrows with explosives and flash powder attached, along with spikes similar to those found on the farm. The man is facing 22 indictable offenses. That seems like a lot, 22 indictable offenses. Decker was ordered held with no bail pending a trial in November. And that's that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that guy has some problems. I don't think it's a question anymore. This one comes from WILX.com. Headline reads, "Complaints pile up about parking lot meat." I didn't know this was a thing, parking lot meat, where a company sets up a tent in a parking lot, probably next to the guy who sells the rugs of Scarface and Tupac. Are they rugs or are they tapestries? What are you supposed to do with those things? God knows I've never bought one. Anyway, this is a thing. People sell meat out of parking lots, and it seems a little shady, according to the article anyway. So, complaints pile up about parking lot meat. You may have seen the big white tents in mall parking lots advertising 20 ribeye steaks for $30. Cheap food, especially meat and produce. Well, produce is usually okay, but cheap meat, I don't know. You're paying for what you get, right? Right? Let's continue. The company, Homestead Steaks, set up shop in the Lansing Mall and Meridian Mall parking lots, but when News 10 went to check it out Tuesday, they were nowhere to be found. The tent-based operation received an F rating from the Better Business Bureau, which I don't think really means a lot. I don't think the Better Business Bureau does much of anything. Customers have described the meat as grisly and foul-smelling. See, you pay for what you get. Another claims he was charged $289 for the $25 box of meat. What the hell? What are you getting for $289? This whole story really baffles me. Just the idea of selling meat in a parking lot baffles me. Oftentimes, what happens is when a customer gets there, they'll try to upsell you to a much larger meat package, which is somewhere around $200 in a lot of cases, said Troy Baker with the Better Business Bureau of Western Michigan. In a statement, Homestead Steaks said, "We have been in business for over 12 years. Our complaint percentage is probably less than your leading grocery store or any other retail store in your area." Well, la-di-da. When buying something from a temporary shop, the Better Business Bureau suggests being aware of their return policy. In the case of Homestead Steaks, it's 3 days to the tent, you got it. So if they say we're packing up tomorrow and leaving, how are you going to return that product to them if the tent is no longer there? Asked Baker. The State Department of Agriculture says Homestead Steaks meets food safety standards. The quality of the meat is federally regulated. Well, I'm not buying meat out of a parking lot, out of a tent. Just doesn't seem right. We can do better than that. Now, this was the article I was talking about in the beginning monologue, being my favorite story of the show. Headline reads, "Bored Waukesha security guard calls police after handcuffing himself on purpose," from CBS58.com. That's what you want in a security guard. Gets bored easily, does dumb shit. A security guard in Waukesha had to call police after he handcuffed himself on purpose. It happened Friday morning inside a Bath and Body Works store. Police say the man told them he was bored, so he put the handcuffs on. He forgot the keys at home. This is the guy in charge of keeping the mall secure. After officers freed him, they say he hid the handcuffs from himself so he wouldn't put them on again. Good thinking, I guess, until you need them. He also said this wasn't the first time he handcuffed himself and didn't have the key. Yeah, don't give that guy handcuffs. I think he's proved himself to be a little irresponsible with the handcuffs. I really kind of wonder how much chocolate is $200 worth of chocolate. Seattle man arrested after devouring $200 in office chocolate. From Patch.com. Seattle police say a 44-year-old man broke into a downtown office building Thursday night, then scarfed down hundreds of dollars in chocolate and took a nap. According to police, an employee called 911 after the man broke into an otherwise empty financial office, rearranged a painting, then set his sights on a glass bowl full of sweets. When officers arrived at the 600 block of Union Street, they found the man had taken off his shoes, watch, and jacket and was relaxing on a couch in the dark inside an upper floor office. He reportedly told police, "You will have to kill me to take me to jail," but he was arrested without incident. The man was booked into King County Jail on suspicion of burglary, malicious mischief, and 2 other warrants. How did he not make himself sick with all that chocolate? I found that hard to believe. Didn't get sick. Good for him. This one is kind of a creepy one. We'll just get right into it. Obsessed fan finds Japanese idol's home by zooming in on her eyes. He used the reflection in her eyes to figure out where she lived. From Asia1.com. There's a couple of photos right up top of the Japanese idol. And the stalker, I guess you would call him. He's leering and sneering. Doesn't look like a happy fellow. So, did you know that high-resolution phone cameras can expose more than just pimples and pores? You might be revealing your location to internet predators without even realizing it. Japanese idol Ina Matsuoka was attacked outside her home last month after a fan figured out her address from selfies she posted on social media, just by zooming in on the reflection on her pupils. The fan, Hibiki Sato, 26, this guy's a grown man. Why is he doing this? Sato, 26, managed to identify a bus stop and the surrounding scenery from the reflection on Matsuoka's eyes and match them to a street using Google Maps. Sato had even approximated the story Matsuoka lived on based on the windows and the angle of the sunlight in her eyes. Matsuoka, 21, a member of the J-pop group. Okay, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. I'll try to pronounce this phonetically, slowly. And it's going to sound a little funny because I don't know what I'm saying. Ten shit suck in you can yomi. Now, I know I pronounced that completely and absolutely incorrectly, but I tried. I really don't know how to pronounce it. Matsuoka, 21, a member of the J-pop group, was attacked outside her home in Tokyo on September 1st by Sato, who had been waiting at a bus stop. She had just reached her door when Sato approached her from behind, covering her mouth with a piece of cloth. He dragged her to a dark corner and molested her, injuring her face in the struggle. Sato admitted to the attack after he was arrested on September 17th and revealed that he was a huge fan of Matsuoka. Fans of J-pop groups have called for better protection of female idols after several high-profile stalking and assault cases in recent years. Meiho Yamaguchi, ex-member of pop group NGT48, that's a lot easier to say than the other one, spoke out in January about an alleged assault in which two men entered her home and tackled her. Japan also revised its anti-stalking laws to cover online harassment after singer Mayu Tomita was stabbed dozens of times by a stalker. Tomita had tried to report her stalker 12 days before the attack, but police dismissed the threat. That's a pretty crazy story. Finding out where somebody lives by looking at the reflection in their eyes in their selfies and matching it to Google Maps. That is a lot of work. And it's a lot of crazy work at that. This next story comes from UPI.com. City combating dog poop problem with flags reading, "Is this your turd?" I have a feeling those flags would be snatched up by kids. Missouri City is taking an unusual approach to the problem of unscooped dog droppings, planting little flags next to abandoned poop with slogans such as, "Is this your turd? 'Cause that's absurd." That's cute. The city of Springfield is placing the flags in grassy areas downtown next to piles of dog poop left behind by owners out walking their pets. The flag slogans also include, "Drop in the trash, not in the grass." That's not so good. And "This is a nudge to pick up the fudge." That one's good. Keep that one. Carrie Lamb, Water Quality Compliance Officer for the city of Springfield, said the flags serve as light-hearted reminders. Every couple of weeks, there's about 25 pounds of pet waste that gets picked up. In an average year, that's costing about $7,500 in public resources that are spent addressing that, Lamb told KOLR-TV. "We feel like having a few city staff helping spread the word with these little flags is a great way to address that." She said pet waste can pose a danger to water quality in the area. So just like human waste, pet waste contains bacteria and other pollutants that can be harmful to our waterways, Lamb said. You can imagine when it rains and we have all of this pavement, if there's pet waste on the pavement or even small grass area, it's going to get picked up by that stormwater runoff and carried into the nearest storm drain. In the downtown area, it goes into Jordan Creek. And that's it. That's the end of the article. I wish there was more. I'd like to know more. Tell me more. Tell me more about little poop flags. You want to talk about sensitivity? Brewery boss shuts down brand new pub after hearing customer swearing. The boss of the UK's largest independent brewery and pub chain has shut down its newest establishment after he popped in for a pint and overheard a punter swearing. Humphrey Smith, who runs Samuel Smith's, was visiting the Fox and Goose and Droitwich Spa 7 weeks after it opened. But when the 74-year-old heard another drinker dropping the F word while telling his wife a joke, he decided to immediately close the place, the SWNS news agency reports. The hereditary boss of the brewery, which is based in Tadcaster, North Yorkshire, and dates back to 1758, is known for running his company with a rod of iron. He previously banned bad language and mobile phones at all 200 of its pubs to encourage conversation. But the sudden shutdown of the Fox and Goose has now left landlord Eric Lowry, who lives in a flat above the pub with his wife Tracy, looking for both a new job and somewhere to live. Writing on the pub's Facebook page, he said, "I'm so sorry Mr. Smith has been down and shut the pub. I love all you people that have stood by me and Tracy and have looked after us." Customer Tony Haycock said, "The pub had been shut for years before it opened again. It was fantastic to pop into after work. It was family friendly, takings were up, the pub was spotless, and there had been no trouble. Regulars were well behaved as we all pulled together as a community." Mr. Smith came in, had a drink, and seemed happy, but he said he heard a man talking to a woman, and the man swore. It wasn't aimed at him, it was nothing at all. He shut the pub for one swear word, taking all the money from the till and the safe, and left the pub landlady and landlord jobless and homeless. It's not like it was closed after a brawl. Another local said, "The man was telling his wife a dirty joke and said the F word. It wasn't aggressive, they were both laughing and joking. No one can quite believe the pub's been shut. It's a bit daft, really, because a pub's where you go to let off steam and enjoy a bit of banter with other people. It is not the first time Mr. Smith has taken umbrage at customers. In 2017, he banned motorcyclists from drinking in the Royal Oak at Ely near Rotherham because he did not want so-called undesirables there." So there you have it. One guy lets the F word slip and the whole pub gets shut down. But it's interesting that see if I can find it in the article. I can't find it, but it basically said the owner cleared out the till and the safe and to shut the place down. Just seems odd to me. It seems like there's something else going on. Maybe the guy has dementia. I don't know. Maybe he's just a rotten dick. I don't know. But maybe he's in some kind of financial trouble. But he has 200 pubs. Closing down one pub and taking all the money from it, I don't think that would, do anything for him. I don't know. The whole thing is strange. Would you spend $3,000 on a shoe? From ndtv.com. Jesus shoe. $3,000 sneakers filled with holy water sell out in minutes. When Jesus blesses a shoe, it gets sold out in minutes. A one-of-a-kind limited edition holy water-filled sneaker went out of stock within minutes, and that too at a colossal price of $3,000 US. The distinctive pair of white Nike Air Max 97s, termed Jesus shoes, are manufactured by a Brooklyn-based creative label. I'm sure it's pronounced Mischief, but it's spelled MSCHF. Some mischief in that spelling, I think. And the USP of the shoe is that it was injected with holy water from the Jordan River. Okay. A closer look at the shoe and the river's water can be seen floating in the sole. That's somewhat clever. Holy water in your soul. If you think that it's only the holy water that soared up the price tag, then take a look at another feature of the kicks. The shoes also have the Bible verse Matthew 14:25, the passage describing Jesus walking on water, at the side of the shoe, along with a single blood drop to represent the blood of Christ. Some other religious insights include the frankincense-scented insoles, a crucifix threaded through the laces, and a red sole, which references the red shoes traditionally worn by past popes. When the shoe is religious, so has to be its package. The shoebox also displays an angel and a seal resembling the official papal seal. We thought of that Arizona iced tea and Adidas collaboration, where they were selling shoes that advertised a beverage company that sells iced tea at bodegas. Fox News quoted the head of commerce, Daniel Greenberg, as telling the New York Post. So we wanted to make a statement about how absurd collaboration culture has gotten, he added. However, Greenberg experimented with less than a dozen such pairs. He added that they were made with no plans to create more, although Gabriel Whaley, founder of the brand, hinted there may be a second coming in the future. $3,000 sneakers. Who were the dopes that bought those? Bunch of dopes. And now it's time for some weird science. This one comes from Newsweek.com. China wanted to send tortoises to the far side of the moon. China was thinking about sending tortoises to the far side of the moon as part of its Chang'e 4 mission, one of the scientists involved has revealed. The plan was dropped after researchers realized they would only have enough oxygen to keep them alive for around 20 days, which is far shorter than the time it took the spacecraft to land on the lunar surface. Zhai Gengjin from the Technology Research Institute at Chongqing University was in charge of designing the biological experiment on board Chang'e 4. In an interview with the technology magazine IEEE Spectrum, Zhai said the team had initially wanted to send a small species of tortoise to the moon. This could have provided important information about how animals react to the gravitational conditions on the lunar surface, findings that could aid future manned missions there. However, constraints around weights on board the spacecraft prevented them from sending the first reptiles to the moon. The weight of the Chang'e 4 probe demanded that the weight of the experiment can't exceed 3 kilograms, or 6.6 pounds, he told the magazine. Even though it is very meaningful to choose tortoise, the oxygen inside the payload can only be used for about 20 days for turtles. Chang'e 4 was launched on December 7th last year. It entered the lunar orbit 5 days later and touched down on the surface of the moon on January 3rd. 2 months before takeoff, the biological experiment was integrated with the spacecraft, so whatever it involved had to be kept alive for about 3 months before reaching the moon. Zhai said they have not ruled out sending animals on future Chang'e missions. They are hoping to send more biological payloads there in the future, and if they are given a larger payload allocations, it may be possible to send animals in the future. There's a long history of animals being sent into space. The first fruit flies were sent up 62 miles into Earth's atmosphere in 1972. 2 years later, the first monkeys, called Albert I and Albert II, They couldn't come up with a second name. They had to name him Albert II. Bunch of slack asses. They were sent up in V-2 rockets. Both died, with Albert I suffocating and Albert II being killed on impact after a parachute failure. Well, that's tragic. Jesus Christ. In 1968, the Soviet Union sent the first tortoises to space on a craft that would orbit the moon. They survived the return trip to Earth. Humans are currently the only living animal known to have visited the moon's surface. However, there may be thousands of tardigrades, microscopic, water-dwelling creatures known for their extreme survival capabilities, alive on the moon right now. In August, it was announced that Israel's private lunar lander, Bereshit, which crashed onto the lunar surface earlier in the year, had a box full of these creatures on board. Nova Spivak, founder of the company that sent the payload, said he had reason to believe the tardigrades survived the crash. Probably building a little city up there. They'll take over Earth soon and come back for revenge. For Chenger 4, instead of tortoises, the team ended up sending seeds and insect eggs. This resulted in seeds sprouting on the moon, the first time humans had successfully grown a living organism on another celestial body other than Earth. The cotton seeds died a few hours later as the lunar night saw temperatures plummet. For example, at the equator, temperatures of minus 133 degrees Celsius have been recorded, NASA says. Speaking to IEEE Spectrum, Zhai said their analysis of the experiments has revealed the cottonseed grew 2 leaves rather than just 1, as was first thought. And that's all we have. Sending stuff into space to see what happens. From NBCnews.com, a RoboCop, a park, and a fight. How expectations about robots are clashing with reality. I don't know that I've ever seen one of these robots in real life. When a fight broke out recently in the parking lot of Salt Lake Park, a few miles south of downtown Los Angeles, Coco Guevara did what seemed the most practical thing at the time. She ran over to the park's police robot to push its emergency alert button. I was pushing the button, but it said, "Step out of the way," Guevara said. I just kept ringing and ringing, and I kept pushing and pushing. She thought maybe the robot, which stands about 5 feet tall and has police emblazoned on its egg-shaped body, this thing does not look threatening in the least, wanted a visual of her face, so she crouched down for the camera. It still didn't work. Without a response, Rudy Espericuda, who was with Guevara and her children at the time, dialed 911. About 15 minutes later, after the fight had ended, a woman was rolled out on a stretcher and into an ambulance, her head bleeding from a cut suffered during the altercation. Amid the scene, the robot continued to glide along its pre-programmed route, humming an intergalactic tune that could have been ripped from any low-budget sci-fi film. Is that real? Does the police robot cop play music? That's weird. The almost 400-pound robot followed the park's winding concrete from the basketball courts to the children's splash zone, pausing every so often to tell visitors to please keep the park clean. There's a picture of the, it is egg-shaped, give it that. Not threatening in the least. I don't know, I don't know what to expect. I hear RoboCop, I think of RoboCop. You know, the awesomely great movie from the 80s. I think of the other robotic cop, ED-209. They have the company that controls the police department, OCP. They're going to show off their new robot, ED-209. And it comes into this room full of executives for the company. And they volunteer one of the executives, to interact with ED-209. And it just shoots the shit out of them. Just blows them away. That's the kind of robot cop I expect. Anyway, the robot, officially named HP RoboCop, has been patrolling Salt Lake Park for the Huntington Park Police Department since June. NBC News visited the park numerous times to observe its operation and its interactions with people. While people are beginning to more commonly encounter robots in everyday life, they can often fall short of expectations, much as HP RoboCop did. That gap can be exploited as a way to make a robot more effective than it actually is, but also runs the risk of creating situations in which people rely on robots in ways they're unprepared for, as was the case for Guevara. The robot's alert button is not yet connected to the police department. Maybe we should get on that. not yet connected to the police department, said Cosme Lozano, chief of police of Huntington Park, a city just southeast of downtown Los Angeles. The calls are instead directed to Nightscope, the company that creates and leases the robots. That's why we're not advertising those features, he said. It's a new program for us, and we're still developing some protocols to be able to fully adopt the program. HP RoboCop is one of the more than 70 autonomous security robots developed by Nightscope. The Silicon Valley company says it has combined self-driving technology, robotics, and artificial intelligence to create what it calls crime-fighting autonomous data machines. Sounds tough. The robots are deployed across the U.S., serving everywhere from airports to gas stations. Lozano said the department is facing some technical challenges incorporating the robot into the force, adding that it's on a trial basis for the city. Once fully connected, the calls will go directly to the department's dispatch center, he said. HP RoboCop is a K5 model specialized for outdoor use and is one of the company's first to wear a police moniker. Nightscope's website promotes some of the K5's abilities as including a 360-degree high-definition live video stream, a license plate reader that can scan 1,200 plates a minute, a two-way intercom, and the ability to track cell phone use in the vicinity. Jesus. I don't know. I don't think I like the sound of this. But as it is currently used, HP RoboCop is little more than a glorified security camera on wheels. The robot's 5 cameras provide 24/7 live monitoring with the ability to send footage directly to officers' phones. But that's currently only accessible to Nightscope. It's another feature that the police are working on activating, Lozano said. The robot is confined to the park's cement path, which has been blocked by construction for a new aquatics center, curtailing its patrol of the north end of the park. Leasing the robot for a year cost the city between $60,000 and $70,000, Lozano said. As of 2018, a Huntington Park police officer with basic assignment makes an annual salary that falls in the same range. Other Nightscope robots have not been without tribulations. One K5 robot patrolling around an office complex in Washington, D.C. ended up falling into a fountain. I think there's some things about robots that are going to be funny, just the way they fuck up. Another of the same model struck a toddler at a shopping mall in Silicon Valley. Well, maybe not everything is funny that they do. I don't think we need them attacking children. The city's official adopted name for the machine is HP RoboCop, but everyone in the park seems to have their own nicknames for it. R2-D2, Spy Machine, and Wally are just some of the pet names that highlight the disconnect between people's expectations of the robot and the reality of its capabilities. This next story comes from the Joe Rogan podcast. So if you listen to that, you probably heard this already. The dailystar.co.uk covered it. U.S. Navy pilot says mystery dark mass emerged from ocean and swallowed torpedo. A high-ranking U.S. Navy pilot has claimed a chilling dark mass was seen coming up from the depths of the ocean moments before a torpedo disappeared 10 years before a world-famous incident. Retired U.S. Navy pilot commander David Fravor first shot to public attention in 2017 after describing how his squadron witnessed a 737-sized object just under the surface of the water during training exercises in the Pacific Ocean, 160 kilometers off the coast of San Diego. The incident, which happened in 2004, became known as the USS Nimitz encounter after pilots then saw a Tic Tac UFO in the skies near the Mass. In an explosive new account, the pilot has shared another UFO mystery that has come out of the woodwork since his story first emerged. Talking to Joe Rogan, Commander Fravor said another pilot once had a similar encounter in the late 1990s off the coast of Puerto Rico. He explained the pilot was flying a CH-53, I have no idea what that is, and was going to pick up a BQM, an unmanned drone used by the U.S. Air Force. A diver was dropped into the water to hook it up and to then fly back when something truly bizarre happened. There, 50 feet above the water, he sees this kind of dark mass coming up from the depths, he added. As they hoist the BQM up, he's looking at this thing going, "What the hell is that?" And then it just goes back down underwater. Once they pull the kid and the BQM out of the water, this object descends back into the depths. The pilot thought the incident was pretty weird, but incredibly, the same thing happened a few months later. Fravor said he's out picking up a torpedo. They hook the diver up on the winch, and as they're lowering him, he sees this big mass. He goes, "It's not a submarine." He's seen submarines before. Once you've seen a submarine, you can't confuse it with something else. This big object, kind of circular, is coming up from the depths, and he starts screaming through the intercom system to tell them to pull the diver up. And the diver is only a few feet from the water. He continued, "They reverse the winch, and the diver is thinking, what the hell is going on?" And all of a sudden, he said, the torpedo just got sucked down underwater, and the object just descended back down into the depths. They never recovered it. Commander Fravor said the helicopter pilot was adamant the torpedo didn't sink, as it literally looked like it got sucked down. Well, if that's not a weird one, I don't know what is. I don't feel good about doing a story that was on another podcast, such as Joe Rogan, because he's so famous. But I found the story very interesting. And I like to end the show with a UFO story if I can. So, that is the end of the show. Thank you for sharing your time with us. You could visit us online at www.otheritemsofinterest.com. You can email us at otheritemsofinterestpod@gmail.com. Check us out on Instagram at otheritemspod and on Twitter at otheritem. I couldn't remember any of those addresses. I don't know why, but I made it. I did it. We did it together as a team. I think it's going to be okay. Cue the music. Welcome to the end of the show. This has been Other Items of Interest. I've been your host, Jack Zablocki. This is where it all comes to an end. This is where we say our goodbyes, our final farewells. But there's always next week, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye, everybody.